Hey, it's Mike Hambright with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another exciting VIP interview where I interview some of the most successful real estate investing experts and entrepreneurs in our industry to help you learn and grow. Today, I'm joined by Zack Childress. He's a real estate entrepreneur, author, speaker, mentor, and much more. Zack wears a lot of hats, just like a lot of the rest of us. And he's a systems and automations expert that teaches others what he uses in his very own business. So today, we're going to talk about analyzing where you are in the life cycle of your business, and only from that point to start looking at ways that you can automate and maybe start to remove yourself from some aspects of your business. None of us got into real estate investing to be a slave to our own business or job, and automation is important for you to be able to take it to the next level. Before we get started with Zack, though, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Zack, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So glad you're here. I talk a lot about I mentor a large group of people, and we talk all the time about how to treat your business like a business and not a job, because most of us left a job for a reason. So automation is really important. And I know you're the master at that. You've got a lot of things to share with us today. Before we get started, though, why don't you tell us about yourself and kind of at what point you started to realize or understand how important it was to kind of automate your business?
Well, that is the day, as I say, the awakening happened.
Yeah.
But I started like, most everybody. I'd gotten a couple of courses off of TV that never really inspired me into do anything. But I had moved to California. A guy from Alabama moved to California. I didn't know what I was doing, but I ended up at a seminar.
Yeah,
that's how it happened. And they started talking about all the different ways to invest without money and without credit. And I thought, Lord, this is it for me. And it was, 12 years ago, that's how it started. And I jumped in. I jumped in face first into this thing because I realized that for me to make this work, this had to be it for me. Like there couldn't be a plan B. I had to make this plan A and the only plan.
Yeah.
And I jumped in full force. Now this is in the Bay Area of California where I started all this. Vallejo, Sassoon, Fairfield, Vacaville, Walnut Creek, Concord, Brentwood, that whole area there.
Where all the cheap real estate's at.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the only cheap real estate I got into was when I went to Sacramento and started doing it. And then cheap there was like $250,000. So, but it's where it happened for me. My first year out was really a big moment for me in my life because within 6 months of doing this business, I literally was able to walk away from my job. Was like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. You guys can have this. I'm going to go build my own business. Now, I'll tell everybody the same thing. It was the scariest, but also the most exhilarating moment of my life. It really was, because here I had left the comfort, as they so-called call it, of corporate America, which is the shackles of you get benefits.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was taking that journey to do it on my own. And I look back 12 years from now and I think to myself, wow, what a great decision I made in my life. Because even though we sometimes see things so fearful and we see things as so cloudy because we just don't know everything yet, for most people in life, they never push forward because they don't see the clear picture. Well, I realized a long time ago, the reason you can't see that clear picture is because you haven't, started that journey yet. You haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
And as long as you stay back and you never move forward, it's always going to be cloudy because we have to fight through the clouds. And that's what I did. And I faced it, head on. Now, here's the beauty of the whole thing. I jumped into this thing like I'd been investing for 20 years. I didn't know how to do anything small. I figured if I'm going to do it, let's do it big.
Yep.
And I remember I went out and I started recruiting people from my local RIAs. And I would tell them, hey, look, if you'll come work with me, I'll give you half of every deal I do. And I thought, well, that's the way to go. Next thing you know, I had a house I had a 4-bedroom house. 3 of the rooms I had cleaned out, put lawn chair furniture in there, and had the old tomato vine voice over IP system back then. And I had them all in these rooms just calling.
Wow.
And that I had 12 people working out of my house
Wow.
at that point. All being paid commission solely on deals that got closed. And that was how I went from working a job making $40,000 a year to making almost $900,000 my first year out.
Wow, that's awesome.
Because of leveraging. That was when I realized systems.
Yeah. So before you left your job, what did you do? Functionally.
I was what they refer to as a business developer. Really, what I did was I sold lumber to contractors.
Okay.
So I drove around the bay in a little yellow truck and met with contractors and, sold them doors, windows, moldings, faucets, hangers, lumber, beams, whatever they needed to build a house.
Yep.
I had no clue that was going to have such an influence on the direction I was going, right? Because the company I worked for sent me to estimating school and blueprint reading school. I just thought, okay, it's going to make me better at what I do. Didn't realize, fast forward.
Yeah.
Now I can look at a blueprint to build a house and say, okay, here's all the materials I need.
Yep.
So it benefited.
What do you think influenced you to kind of go big out of the gate, to like just have that vision that I need? A lot of people obviously start on their own and they're doing everything. So you kind of have the opposite side. What influenced that?
I've been like that my whole life. Even when I moved to California, I got into that company. It was called Meeks Lumber. They gave me a territory that was doing really small numbers, and they said, go out and sell lumber. Well, I remember I went home that night and I said, what they told me to do was call all the contractors. Well, I had a different approach. I said, well, if I call all these contractors, I'm going to be nickel and diming my sales slowly up. So I went down to the building department and I pulled a list of all the building permits that were pulled for like $5 million, $10 million, $3 million, $2 million. And I went straight to the biggest builders there were. And those were the guys I went and got built relationships with. And so in 1 year, I took a $500,000 a year territory to $3 million.
Yeah.
And then it went to $7 million. So I've done it my whole life.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
I'm wired that way. It's like, okay, I can either do this slow or I can go right to the top. Here's what I know when you go right to the top. If you succeed big. If you fail, you fall hard.
Yeah. Yeah. But fast. I mean, who in real estate, there's so many people that fail, and usually failure more often than not means that you never got started for a lot of people.
True.
So it's well, if you're going to fail, why not fail fast? Not necessarily fail big, like you get wiped out and decimated financially.
No, not at all.
But if you're gonna fail, who wouldn't want to just fail fast and get it over with?
Mike, I say this, and this is important. Through my journey, I've had the beauty, like yourself, to talk and hang out with highly successful people. And what I've learned is they do one thing different than the average person. And what that is it's the speed in which they implement what they learn. It's a very small little gap, but that speed of implementation is done for a reason. And it's because they know not everything they try will work. So they would rather get it started now to know if it's going to succeed or fail, so that they can either move it out of their life and start something else, or put everything they've got into it because it will succeed. Yeah. And I was taught that years ago from my godfather on the golf course. He used to have me drive him around while he drank and hit golf balls. And he used to share that with me. And I maybe that had a big influence on the way I am with business today. I want to go all for it.
Yeah.
If it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll try something else.
Yeah, that's great. So talk a little bit about, it's really that kind of same attitude that started to feed into the automation side. Like, in order to go big, in order to think big, you've got to think beyond your own capabilities and capacity, right?
Well, and that's a good point. And that's where, like, years ago, I came up with the PSA formula, P plus S equals A. And that is what actually kind of unfolded in my own journey, because as I was growing massively and growing big and got into an office and had all these people, I thought, oh, look at me. Woo, I'm a big business owner. I got staff. I got, things going on. We're doing, sometimes 10, 12 deals a month. Sometimes we were doing 14, 15 deals a month. I was like, this is amazing. Like, look at all this. Well, then I woke up one day and I realized I didn't have a business. The business had me.
Yeah.
Right? It controlled me, because if I didn't go in, I couldn't do anything. And this was along my journey. It all stopped. And that was a gut blow for me. It really pissed me off, to be honest with you, because I had this awakening moment in my life that this whole concept of owning a business was not what I had. And that was when I sat back and I started realizing, well, why are franchises so successful, like what you're talking about? And, what makes them, highly efficient? And that was when I realized that everybody in my office, they were all coming to me for answers. How do I do this? How do I do this? What do I do here, Zach? How is this? Right. How is this? Even though how do I say this? It made my ego feel good. It did nothing for my lifestyle, right? My ego was running the business when I should have let go of that ego a long time ago and just focused on the lifestyle that I wanted, which meant letting control go, putting processes in place, which is the P for the PSA formula, the process. Looking at every single component of my business and defining what is the process that makes that process work. What is the A to Z step to that? Not the A to Z to the whole business, which is what I was looking at, because that was what was in my head. It wasn't what was in their heads. But what was each component? Like, how did we do direct mail for out-of-state owners? What was that process? How did we do direct mail for, in-state landlords? What was that process? I'm talking 186 processes is what I came up with. Yeah. So that was where I said, okay, now I have an SOP, standard operating procedures, to my business. At that point was when I realized that I was moving forward with a business plan, was at that point. But that would have never have happened if I wouldn't have wanted to go on that vacation and realized I couldn't, because it made me reestablish my business. Then what I realized is just because I have the process doesn't mean that I'm out of the whole equation. And that's where I realized that every process has to be systemized, because one person could take the process and deliver it one way, where another person could take it and deliver it a whole nother way. And if it wasn't systemized, and here's how I define this. And one of my mentors said this to me. He said, Zach, you know that your business's processes are systemized when you can walk in and fire everybody that day and hire a whole new group of people tomorrow, and they can step in and run the business. And I thought, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Right. I need those types of systems in place that literally checks and balances. When somebody does something, it's logged. So if they don't come in the next day, another person can step in and follow the system and just keep running everything organically, in an essence. And so I did. That was what I focused on: process, systemize, process, systemize, process, systemize. And then that's when automation stepped in. That's the A to the formula. And this was right about the time I bought a software company out in the Bay Area of California. And one of the guys that I got with the company was an analysis, as they call him. Well, really what he did was he went in and looked at companies and he said, okay, you can get rid of these 20 people and build this software. And I inherited him with the company. And so I had him come up to Vallejo, and which is where my first office was, and had him look at what we were doing. And that's when he started laying down automation. And let me say this. If it wasn't for the automation, there's no way I would have gone from where I was to where I am today as fast as I did. Without a shadow of a doubt. It wouldn't have never happened. Yeah. For instance, I had 2 girls in my office. I paid them $35,000 a year. 2 girls, $70,000 a year. I paid these 2 girls to literally come into my office every single day, stand in front of a fax machine, and send offers all day long, Monday through Friday. That was their job. That's what I paid them to do. Well, obviously he came in and he was like, whoa. Like, we can build software to do this.
Yeah.
I was like, really? And that's how the PSA formula came to be. And that's when we started automating all these systems. We started automating process. Now, let's be clear. Automation is thrown around very loosely in our industry. Right. you can have an automated lifestyle, but there has to be some physical components that handle the communication back and forth. But let me say this, there is a ton that we can automate, but there still has to be checks and balances from human nature to make sure those processes are being taken care of.
Absolutely. Yeah. So talk a little bit about, I guess one question that a lot of people have is let's kind of go through. We said we're going to talk about where you are in your life cycle. So start your kind of business life cycle.
Yep.
So give some examples of people, and based on where they're at, some of the things they might consider trying to automate or systemize.
Great point. Because, most people, they start off in real estate with one or two ideas in their mind. The first idea is, I just want to make money now, right?
Yep.
Like, I got to pay my mortgage. I got car payments coming up. Kids got to go to school. I need money now. The second one is the person who steps in and says, you know what? I'm ready for retirement. I need to start building some long-term wealth now. That's really what we run into the majority of the time, is those two types of people. And the heavy end is the person who needs money now. That's typically about 80% of who we see in the marketplace. For that person, when they're starting out, we always say your life cycle is a tier 1 investor. That is your life cycle starting off. But it's very important that you understand that as a tier 1 investor in that life cycle, to get to a tier 4 investor, you can't get stuck in tier 1, which is what I did for 2.5 years. Next thing you know, you're in it, you're doing it, and you get stuck there.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to remove yourself very efficiently by automating as many components as you can, which is the day-to-day monotony, the task management, using virtual assistants. That's an outsourced process that we do classify as automation because you're not doing the work. There are other things that we can automate, especially as a wholesaler, like task of deliverables. There's a great software out there. It's free. You can put it on your computer, and it's called timedoctor.com. And Time Doctor will allow people to start to manage their tasks, jobs efficiently without thinking about it constantly. So it just keeps them on track with what's going on. Some other things is like technology, and I know there's all types of technology out there, but when we're automating for a wholesaler, it's lead generation. We have to automate lead generation through landing pages and lead services online so that they're not spending, because if we wanted to sit here and talk about every way to find a lead, we could probably, between me and you, Mike, we could probably come up with 75 to 100 different ways to find leads.
Yeah.
And we don't need all of them to find one lead a month. But the point is a lot of those requires manual labor. A lot of those require manual labor to go out, source leads. Now, if they're going to go do direct mail, that's fine. But what happens once the direct mail starts coming back in? They need to start automating some of the monotony, like the inbound calls, like a call center in place with a script pre-established for them so that they're only dealing with the most highly motivated people.
Yeah.
Another thing that we like to automate is our offering process. One of the biggest things that we do is automate our offering process. So we built software that, will literally send out 7,000 offers in 2 minutes and 58 seconds.
Wow. That's particularly for MLS type deals.
It's anything. It's anything. Anything we can load into it, we can establish an offer process with built-in follow-up sequences and cover letters and all types of stuff. And the reason that we do that is because there's two folds when it comes to lead gen, right? You have private leads, you have public leads. Private leads are the leads that we have to go after and get. Public leads are the leads that are on the MLS. We can export all those out and make offers to them. But here's the equation. There's two ways to target these lead gens, right? There's the old traditional way, which says, I'm going to look at a lead. I'm going to drive my car over to the house. I'm going to go look at the house. I'm going to come back. I'm going to research that whole thing, and then I'm going to make an offer. And nothing wrong with that. But when we introduce automation, it's the speed of implementation in which we can yank the low-lying fruit out of the market the fastest. So where that person's focusing on that one deal, I've already made 3,000 offers. And so what that means is am I going to get 3,000 offers accepted? No, I'm not. They're too low. You know what I mean? I'm only pulling the low-lying fruit out of the market, which then let's say I can make $30,000, $40,000 off of that low-lying fruit. Well, now I've just created my marketing budget to go into that market and explode my marketing campaign now to then pull in the traditional leads, the ones I have to spend time researching.
Yep.
So these are just some automated processes through that. Like we're a big believer in automating the REO leads because I can't stand getting on the phone with agents half the time. So I'd rather just click some buttons and pull REO leads right from the bank's vaults. With buyers and lead generation and direct mail management, all of these types of technology and management with lead pages and autoresponders, you start pushing all that together, you start to create more of a systemized, automated process that allows that tier one wholesaler to then manage his business. Not be consumed by it, but to manage it from a distance and say, okay, this looks like a deal, that looks like a deal, and just deal with the flow process.
Yeah.
And that's what we're ultimately trying to get all of our students to do.
Yeah, yeah. So talk a little bit about how people go from new or doing low volume to being able to implement some of the things you're talking about here, because as I know and you know, it takes a long time to learn those things and get them in place for the average person. And so how do they start to move in that direction? What are the kind of the baby steps they need to take?
Good question, because baby steps for me is when we look at there's three forms of income all businesses have to have. And this is where I try to help everybody understand. Form one is what we refer to as A capital. A capital is startup capital. Every business needs startup capital, even new investors. Because why? Because what you just said. It takes time and efficiency to build all these tools and systems in place. So you got to have startup capital. That capital is either to, invest in yourself, your business, your education, or whatever to get you off the ground. Yeah. But then they've got to have a second form of capital, which gives them the ability to do what I just said. And that's called stabilizing capital. And that is consistent income coming in every single month, whether they do a wholesale deal or not. Now, that income is typically thought of as passive investing, tier 4 investing, buy a rental, have cash flow. That's exactly how I built my business. I went from wholesaling to tier 2 to where I built up almost $20,000 a month in cash flow for houses I never bought. And that $20,000 a month is what I exploded into my business for hiring people, moving into an office space, buying systems and tools and processes and so forth. But it's taking the new investor from doing one or two wholesale deals to then moving their knowledge base into how to control properties to create cash flow.
Okay. Awesome. Can you talk a little bit about in terms of where to automate around what people like or don't like in terms of the components of their job, their business, business, not their job, their business?
That's right. I was going to say, well, it's not a job. It's an adventure, if anything. Yeah. We said this earlier. It's a great opportunity. That's a great question because I don't want to sound like an attorney here, but I don't know if there's actually one answer that would answer that for everyone.
Right.
Because we have to look at it from a SWOT point of view, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and trends. And one of the biggest things I always tell people is define your weaknesses. What is it you're weak at, and can you partner with someone, or is there a system or tool that will overcome that weakness? Now, I will tell you this, from all the students I've worked with over the years, and it's been a lot, one of the things that always frustrates me the most is the student that wants to do this business so bad, but they're afraid to pick this thing up right here and call people.
Yeah.
They're terrified of this. And for instance, I've got a student in Texas. It's in Killeen, Texas. You know where Killeen is?
Absolutely.
Okay. Her name's Dee. And just the most wonderful lady you'll ever meet. But she was so afraid to talk to people. She just didn't want to do cold calling, right? And I said, well, Dee, if you won't call people, then how are we going to get leads to you unless we build a front-end automated system? She said, if they'll call me, I'm happy. So literally we spent the week building a direct mail process, driving them into a landing page that took them to a call center, that the call center pre-screened them and then put them on her expecting a call from her. So now she didn't feel like she was cold calling. We automated that process. The first week out, she got a deal. It was a house worth about $40,000. She's texting me. I'll never forget this. I'm at a seminar and I'm teaching and she's texting me. She's like, oh my gosh, it worked. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So when that night came, I said, well, offer them $5,000. Well, she was like, they're never going to accept that. I said, just offer it. $5,000. They accepted it. And then now she's in the groove. She's now into a fourplex, doing other deals, because what it was is it wasn't that she was broken. Like you said, we just had to figure out what she was weak at and build a process around that weakness to put her back in control.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's consulting is all that is. And as well as I do, every person is different. Now, the problems may be the same, the solutions may be the same, but every individual sees their problem as a mountain. It's the biggest mountain that they've incurred in their life. Where to us, it's just a little stone.
Right.
We're like, oh, no, that's no problem. Let's just do this, this, and this, and we'll get around it. But everybody's different. And what I always say is this, is what you think is a mountain is only a mountain because you haven't gotten the education enough to understand how to get around it, over it, or through it. And that's really ultimately coming from just being in this business, doing something every day to keep this business running, educating yourself, read a book, watch a video, hang out with flip nerds, learn something that's going on here to keep your business moving forward.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just the confidence of seeing it happen once, and then then you're like, oh, that's it. Okay, I don't have to worry about that anymore.
I'll never forget my very first wholesale deal. 12 years ago, maybe a little longer now. I made $2,500 on a wholesale deal that I did in Sacramento, California. And Mike, you would have thought I made $1 million. Yeah. I mean, you would have. I remember driving home, holding that check in my hand. It's funny. I got a check right here that I just did another wholesale deal. But I had that check in my hand, and I was driving home, and I'm thinking to myself, it worked. It worked. Yeah. I can't believe it worked. And I think that's what most people need to overcome is the fact that they're struggling to make it work when in reality it works already. It's just some of the things they're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
So, and I always say this too to new people, and Mike, you might connect with this as well, is the sooner they stop chasing the money and start chasing the business, it'll come.
Yep.
It'll come. It absolutely will come. And, that was another advice from one of my mentors, many mentors I've had in my life that, said to me, he said, Zach, you got to stop chasing the money because here's the thing. Every time you chase this dollar bill right here and this dollar bill doesn't work for you, you got to start all over again. But when you build the business, you build the processes and the systems, these things come in every single month.
Right, right.
And he goes, and the problem with that is most people want everything right now. Yeah. And when you're building a business, that's not how it works.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
well, Zach, if folks want to learn more about the great stuff you're doing, I know you have a couple different content pieces out there. Where should they go?
Absolutely. We have a site called REISuccessAcademy.com. And you can just do a /free gift. That's for you guys from the Flip Nerd family. That's free gift. We got a bunch of free stuff over there for you. So that's REISuccessAcademy.com /free gift. And if you just want to see like what I do every week with article writing and blog posts and what's going on in the market, instead of putting free gift in, just do /blog, BLOG. And you can see what we're all about.
We'll add those links down below the video here too. So, well, Zach, thanks for sharing your lessons. I think, as you and I both know, automation is key. I mean, even as I sit here, people can't see my whole room, but I'm in my office and I have a team of people that are right on the other side of this wall doing things that means that I don't have to do them. So having a team is really critical unless you want to be enslaved in a job for the rest of your life. So
that's very true.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks so much for joining today, and appreciate your time, my friend.
Sounds good, man.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to FlipNerd.com.